You're listening to the North Parkway Podcast, weekly talks designed to help you take the next step in your spiritual journey. You can learn more about our church at northparkway.org. And if these talks are helpful to you, consider using the link in the description to give. Your financial support helps us continue to make great content. All right, well, that's enough intro. Let's get to today's talk.
In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him everything was made, and without him nothing was made that had been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. It's pretty good, right? I wrote that. I know. It's hard for me to believe. People, if you knew me when I was young, you would have thought, there's no way John's ever going to write something like that. The words just came to me. Let me introduce myself. I think your pastor told me he was going to say something. My name is John, son of Zebedee. And I lived a long time ago, but I am thrilled to be here with you today to tell you about, well, my book, why I wrote it. And really, it's not about the book. It's about who I wrote the book about. But I want to tell you about it. It's very important to me. And I am so thrilled that instead of taking you back to my time, I get to come and be in your time. Because you are so blessed with amazing inventions, things to make life easier. Like Cheez-It cheese crackers. Wow. I wouldn't be looking like this if they had those in my day. I could tell you that much. Or the Planet Shaker, the fizzy. It burns a little bit, but it's sweet. It's a good burn. You should try one. Or my favorite, air conditioning. Oh, wait a minute. Where's the vent? I'm going to, yes. Yes. See, that would have been a game changer. There would have been, I think, fewer wars in my day if people had air conditioning. We wouldn't be so cranky all the time. I'm glad to be here with you. I want to tell you about why I wrote my book about my best friend. It's a biography. I journaled a little bit at a time, and I finally decided I can't keep this to myself. I need to share this with other people. And when I went to do that and compile it, it was later in life. People ask me, John, why are you writing another gospel? Don't we have enough already? I know. I was late to the game. My gospel is the fourth one in your Bible because I was the last one to write it. People said, do we really need another one? See, Peter, if you've ever heard of any of the disciples, you've probably heard of Peter. As soon as Jesus left it up to us to share the word, well, Peter had taken the whole story of Jesus and created this beautiful narrative with parables and stories and events. And he memorized it, and he would teach it in all one piece like a sermon. And he taught other people, and they would go out to different towns, and they would, as best as they could remember, word for word, the whole gospel from beginning to end. But Peter, well, he got thrown into prison. And we realized somebody had better write this stuff down. So Mark, one of his friends, somebody that looked up to Peter, Mark wrote down Peter's message as a book that he could send out to people, the Gospel of Mark. And a few years later, Matthew, one of my friends, Matthew did the same thing. He wrote down what Peter had been saying, and he added some stories that he remembered. And then Luke, a young man who came to faith in Jesus after Jesus had risen from the dead, he went around interviewing people. I remember when he came to my house to talk to me and Jesus' mother, Mary, because she lived with me at the time. What do you remember about when Jesus was a boy, when he was born? All of those gospels were already out there. People said, John, why did you write another gospel? Do we really need another one? A couple reasons. For one, he didn't write everything about Jesus' life. I wanted people to get a different view of my friend. There were so many parables, and those are great, but I also wanted you to hear what he talked like, what he thought like, how he spent time just with this close inner circle. I wanted you to hear those things. And by the time that I started publishing what I wrote, I was getting older myself. And I knew eventually I wouldn't be around. And I was the last one still living who was there from the beginning. I was the last of the 12 still around. I wrote it down. But the biggest reason I wrote my gospel is because of what happened the day that I met Jesus. And I want to tell you about that day, because it changed my life. There was a before and there was an after. Some of you have had events like that. It splits your life right down the middle. There was before this happened and there was after. Well, that was that day for me. And I was primed for it. I was ready because I was looking for something. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I needed something. Have you ever had a moment where you wake up one day and you realize, what am I doing? It's the same thing every day. Get up, eat, go to work, come home exhausted, eat, go to sleep. Get up, eat, go to work, come home exhausted, eat, go to sleep. Some of you, I think what is that term they use? The middle of the life crisis? I don't know. For me, I was what you would call a teenager, 16, 17 years old, and I started to feel so hollow because going through the same routine was just pointless. It was meaningless. What am I doing? Why am I working so hard? Why do I even get up in the morning? There had to be something more. And the people around me, the people in my village, see, I lived right on the sea of a large lake. We called it Lake Gennesaret, but you might know it as the Sea of Galilee. It was a fishing family. We were a hardworking, middle-class family. And I had good things going for me. It just, I don't know, wasn't enough. And the people that I grew up around, they all had different things. For many, the meaning of life for them was family. It's finding a beautiful wife and having children. That sounded good. I liked beautiful girls. The problem is, I didn't have one at the moment. There were no prospects for me. And honestly, who would want to bring a child into that kind of environment? The Romans had taken charge of our country. They took all of the money. We weren't free to do anything. It wasn't going to work for me. Some people, they poured their lives into work, into their jobs. That was my dad. Oh, he's a great fisherman. I know you think of Peter as the fisherman. He wasn't like Zebedee. He was the man. You always find good catches. He had multiple boats. My brother and I, we worked in the family business, but I was the younger son. And in that day, that means that my older brother James, who was not nearly as handsome or smart as I am, was going to inherit the family business just because he was born first. Are you kidding me? Come on. That's not fair, is it? No. Any younger siblings? Who is a younger sibling in the room? I feel you. Yes. Anyway, he was going to get all the stuff. And most of the money that we made went to taxes for the Romans or taxes for the Jews who were in with the Romans. It was no good for me. And for other people, they found their identity in meaning in being a Jew, in following the law, in religion. But don't get me wrong. I was a Jew. I followed the law as best I could. I went to synagogue, which is sort of like church for you. I did it. But every time that I thought, okay, this is what God needs me to do so that he will accept me and love me, I always fell short. I couldn't keep the law. I could keep it in synagogue, but once we were out on the fishing boat, men talk a little bit differently when they've been out all day on the fishing boat. Some of you know what that's like. And I realized every time I went and the teacher would read the law, I would see more and more how I fell short. And it wasn't enough. So I was looking, I was hungry, but I didn't know what I wanted. Have you ever been there in life? I need something, but I don't know what it is. Hopefully I'll know it when I see it. So I went through day to day. I was just doing regular stuff. And one day, one of my brother's friends came back from out of town. A guy named Andrew. He's a little bit older than I was. Young man. Also single. Also with no prospects. I felt a little bit better. Andrew had been around this longer than I did. He didn't have a wife either. Maybe there was still hope. Maybe. But Andrew came back and he sat down and he talked late into the evening with me and my brother and my father and my mother about this guy down in the southern part of the country, this wild man also named John, who was telling people that the Messiah was coming. Now, as a Jew, let me kind of explain this. Right? My whole life, our nation had been occupied by the Romans. People who did not believe in God, who did not respect God's laws, who made fun of us for trying to do the right thing. We paid all of the taxes to them. They treated us like dogs. We wanted them gone. And there was a promise in our scriptures that someday a leader would come and deliver us and bring freedom. The Messiah. And more as I grew up, people were talking about this. There's this buzz, there's this energy, when people started talking about the Messiah. Well, there's a crazy guy going around saying, the Messiah's coming. And I thought, maybe that's what I need. Maybe freedom is what I need. Maybe nationalism is what I need. And so I told my dad, I want to go back with Andrew to hear what this guy is saying. And Dad said, you idiot! Are you kidding me? It's fishing season. How am I supposed to pull in the nets? I'm not paying you to go down there and be with some crazy and some no job. You realize he doesn't have a job, son? How are you going to pay the bills? Dad, I don't have bills. Well, how are you going to pay the bills someday? I'm not worried about it. I needed something. I needed a change of scenery. So I went with Andrew to listen to this guy, John. Plus, he just had a cool name. So, we had that in common. I went to John, and let me tell you, John was a weird guy. He was a weird dude. Sometimes people get him and me mixed up. He was an odd duck, John the Baptizer. Long hair, long beard. He made his own clothing. Some of you guys, maybe you make your own clothing. I think you're better at clothes making than John. There's like random animal skins from stuff that he killed out in the wild. And, and he didn't have a job. He just ate whatever he could forage from the forest. And he smelled like he lived in the wilderness, if you know what I mean. Some of you guys, you know somebody that bathing is not their forte. You always knew. You knew when John was around before you saw him. You knew he was, I smell John the Baptizer. But I heard him talk, and the man had passion. He believed in something. And it was inspiring. And I saw a guy who had no need of a wife, who had no need of a job, and religion. He looked the religious leaders right in the face and insulted them. I like this guy. So I followed him for a while. Maybe that would make me fulfilled. Maybe he was the Messiah. Well, as you can imagine, if you go throwing insults at powerful people, eventually you get a little bit of blowback. And the elites, the snobs from Jerusalem, the people who betrayed their own countrymen by playing nice with the Romans so that they could get some of the tax money too, the really wealthy people, they sent their lackeys out one day to talk to John. And they're questioning him, they're grilling him. Are you the Messiah? Let me tell you, a hush went over the crowd when they asked, are you the one? Because I have to be honest, I was kind of wondering that myself. I was kind of glad they asked instead of me. It would have been a little bit awkward. And John, in typical John fashion, he's silent for a minute. And then he just, me? 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 Am I the... He's a little weird. Me? No! I'm not the Messiah. Are you kidding? They were a little upset. A little offended. They said, well, if you're not the Messiah, are you Elijah come back from the dead? No. Are you the prophet that's supposed to come? No. I think he was just playing with them. They say, what gives you the right, Mr. Baptizer, to be making all of this commotion? That's our job to baptize people. And it turns out they were kind of bad at it. They said, what gives you the right, sir, to make all of this commotion outside of town? And he said this, and it something lit up inside of me. He said, right here in this crowd. And about the size of this group here today, maybe a little bit bigger. He said, right here in this crowd in front of you is the Savior you're looking for. And he's so much greater than I am, I'm not even worthy to untie his shoes and wash his feet. You think I'm creating a stir? He's the one who's creating. He's the one who's going to change everything. And I thought, the Messiah's here? I'm looking around the room. I'm like, not him. Not him. Oof, definitely not him. Maybe him. No, not him. I'm looking, who could it be? Which one? I want to go up and talk to John, but it's kind of awkward because he's in the middle of an important conversation. So I'm to Andrew, like, which one is it? Did he tell you? No, shut up. I can't hear. He was right there. We didn't know. Let me tell you, I was looking at every face as closely as possible because if that was the answer, if that's what I needed something. I was so hungry on the inside. Well, the crowd dissipated and I never found out who it was. The next day, Andrew and I were going to set up camp while John was finishing up dunking people in the river. And when we came back, this is just life. When we came back, he said, boys, oh, boys, you missed it. Oh, no. He said, I saw the Savior. I saw the Messiah. He came and I baptized him and I saw a vision from heaven and I heard God's voice talk to me. You missed it, boys. You missed it. And I thought, really? Seriously? You send me to make camp, and then the Messiah comes, and they hear the voice of God from heaven? Oh, my goodness. It's just my luck. I said, well, where did he go, John? I don't know, but I know who he is now. So I kept waiting. Well, the next day, okay, let me tell you, as if I wasn't looking closely enough already, the next day I'm out there with John, and I am focused on every face. John, is that him? No. Is that him? Is that him? Is that him? All day I'm looking. And finally, later in the afternoon, John grabs him and he says, Dad, that's him. And I have to be honest. He said, that's him. And I saw the guy and I thought, oh, I saw him the other day. He's the guy. I was expecting somebody, 6'4" and muscles everywhere and a booming baritone who walks with a sense of purpose in his life because, he's supposed to drive the Romans out and freedom and all of that stuff. Like, he just looks like a guy. Are you sure that's him? I said, yeah, that's him. And when he pointed him out, something stirred in me. And I said, I have to go see this for myself. And John said, go follow him, go catch up to him. He was a distance away. And so I took off running, and running is something that I'm good at. I love to run. I'm just fast. Some people are just born that way. I just love to run. I'm way faster than Andrew. He's old legs, 20-something. He's washed up. I was young and fresh. I loved running. And so I took off running, and I got there a lot faster than he did, and I caught up with this man who's supposed to be making everything make sense, and he must have heard my footsteps coming before I got to him because he turned around, and I came to a stop, and I'm breathing, and my heart's racing, and he turned, and he looked at me. And he asked me a simple question that changed everything in my life. I wrote it down in my book. He said, what are you looking for? And I froze, and my heart was racing because I had been running, but it was also racing because I knew, this is it. I'd never met this man before. And he looked at me, and it was like he was looking into me, and he knew. He knew right away. He knew that there was something missing in me, and he didn't bring the answer, he asked the question, John, what are you looking for? And I could feel my hands quivering as I looked in his eyes. And I hesitated. I didn't know what to say. What was I looking for? I tried a lot of things. Nothing fit. Nothing changed. Nothing was good enough. But here was somebody who saw exactly where I was and exactly what it is that I missed. And he's asked me, what is it that you're looking for? I was dumbfounded. And as I sat there looking, and the whole world seemed to just, you ever have that moment? The whole world sort of blurs in the background, and it's just all this one moment. Finally, Andrew, he's almost as slow as his brother, okay? They're built to be on ships and not on land, I think. Finally, Andrew comes chugging in, completely unaware of the moment, and says, "Teacher, where are you staying? We'd like to go with you." Not being rude, but Jesus, he never broke his gaze. He still looked straight into my eyes. And he answered Andrew's question, but I think he also answered the one in my heart. He said, "Come with me and you'll see." I remember that moment so clearly. Have you ever had one of those moments where years later you can remember right where you were when you heard the news? I remember where I was standing when I heard. Well, that was a moment for me. I was a teenager. When I wrote the story as an old man, I remember right where I was standing. I remember it was about 4:00 in the afternoon. I remember what the smell of the river passing through smelled like. I remember what I was wearing. I remember everything in vivid detail because that changed my life. Because when I walked back to where Jesus was staying and heard him talk, I realized this is not a normal person. Because he talked about God like he knew him. He talked about God not like some maker who had all of the rules. He talked about why we were given the rules. Not just because he was born a Jew. He talked about why the Jewish people mattered. That we were supposed to be setting an example for the world. The world was supposed to see something different in us because that's how God the Maker wanted us to live. And he explained so much and I understood so much. And I thought, this person knows God. That's what I was missing. Experiencing God. And the moment I had just a taste of it, the moment that I had just a sample of it, I knew this is what I've been looking for my life. This is what makes me feel complete. This is what all of that hollowness and the emptiness, that craving that I didn't know what it was, that's what it was that I needed. But he was right in front of me and I didn't even realize it until somebody pointed him out. People said, "John, why did you write your book?" Because I was staring the answer to my question in the face and I didn't even recognize it until somebody said, "That's it, right there." And I realized I've got to tell people that's what you're looking for. And so I did. I wrote my book and I cataloged these things not just to make a record of it. I want people to experience him the way I did. Now, obviously, I'm a fan of writing stuff down. Let me tell you a couple of things that I learned, and you can write them down. And let me just say, you have it so much easier than I did. quill and ink and scroll. You can just move your thumbs on your, whatever that is, the color stuff, and it's amazing. Or write it down in the paper. Here's what I learned. I learned that if you look for meaning in love, your lover will never be enough. Because as I followed Jesus, I saw so many people who were married and had love. And they were just as hungry as I was. If you look for meaning in love, your lover will never be enough, because no matter how beautiful she is, no matter how handsome and successful he is, they can't fill the need inside of you. And can I tell you, if you expect that beautiful young bride to fill every need you have inside of you, you put weight on her shoulders that she can never hold. It's impossible. Young ladies, if you expect that I finally meet that guy and he's going to make everything right in my life, have you met men? Are you kidding? No way. It's impossible. And you'll actually ruin the love that you have when you expect somebody to fill that deep-seated need inside of you. Don't look for meaning in love. Love is great. If it comes to you, great. But you can't center your life around it. I also learned this, write this down. If you look for meaning in work, you'll never have enough. There will always be a little bit more that you need. I wasn't a wealthy family, but we had enough to eat. But let me tell you, we worked sun up to sundown. And do you know who got to keep most of the money? The government. The rich people. I know that you can't relate to the government taking all of your hard-earned money. Or maybe you can. You'll never have enough. If your job is your sense of purpose, there will always be a little bit more that you need. Somebody will always have a nicer boat than you have. Somebody will always have a bigger crew than you have. Somebody will always raise the taxes on you, and then you'll have to work more just to put food on the table. It's not enough. And write this down. If you look for meaning in religion, you will never be enough. John the Baptizer had this right. Jesus doubled down on it. Almost all of the criticism Jesus ever gave was against the religious institutions, because they had taught people, if you're just a Jew and you follow the rules, God will be pleased with you. But nobody can follow the rules. And every time I went to synagogue, I felt worse about myself as a person, because I knew deep down inside I was not good enough. And so many people in my nation believed in God and were looking for the Messiah. And can I tell you, time after time, we would go into a town and the people desperate for a Savior were looking at him in the face and had no idea he was there. Religion won't save you. If anything, it pushes you further away from experiencing God. The only thing that works as the center of my life, the only thing that works at the center of any human life, is knowing God, the way that Jesus knew God and the way that Jesus taught us to know God. That's what made the difference. Do you want to know why I wrote my book? What the purpose is of every word in that book that I wrote? Write this down. I wrote my book so that you would know God, not just know about him. That's what makes the difference. And I wish I could tell you that when I met Jesus, all of my problems faded away. They didn't. I didn't get a wife when I met Jesus. The Romans didn't leave my nation when I met Jesus. The tax requirement on my family didn't get any easier when I met Jesus. I didn't grow 2 inches taller. I didn't suddenly become more handsome than I already impossibly was. But let me tell you what did change. When I woke up in the morning, I had a reason to get up and live. And when life was hard and I stumbled, I had a reason to get back up and keep going. That gnawing thought, what's the point of my life? Why are you doing this? It faded because I had a reason. I never knew that being created in God's image means that I was made to be in contact with Him. And my whole life I had been missing it and I didn't know what it was. I've noticed this in the short time I've been in your country. You're not so different than we Jews were. You see, I saw a piece of your currency. It says, in God we trust. Your what do you say it? Your thing that you say to your flag, one nation under God. Your country says you are a Christian nation. We were a nation who served God. That was our identity. But I traveled across our nation with Jesus, and in town after town after town, I saw people who identified as believing in God but had never met Him, who were utterly lost and hungry, and they didn't know what it was that they were missing until we came and we said, let me introduce you to Jesus. You are surrounded by people who believe in a God that they have never met, who are hungry for something more in life than getting up and doing the same thing every day and going back to sleep and waiting until they die. You're surrounded by them. And they need somebody to point and say, look, there He is. I will always be grateful to John for being that man for me. I will always be grateful to Andrew for coming back to my town and saying, you have to see this for yourself. And I dedicated my life to finding as many people as I can and pointing them to the answer because it changed me. You must be that for the people around you. Because in Him is life. And it is the light for all of humankind.
Hey, this is Pastor Chris again. Thanks for listening. If today's talk was helpful in your spiritual life, odds are there's someone you know who could benefit from it. Take a minute right now to share it with them. And if you live in the area, come try out a service in person because church is more fun with friends. See you next time.